Hello everyone, welcome to the NPTEL online certification course, our course titled Medical Law. So, as my volunteers, you have gone through the various modules of our course. So, today we are at the starting of last module, that is on clinical trials and the organ transplantation. Myself, Dr. Chaitanya Mittal, currently working as medical legal expert at Dr. B.C. Roy Multi-Speciality Medical Research Center, IIT Kharagpur. So, today we are starting lecture 36, ethical issues in organ transplantation. So, in this lecture we will be covering the various concepts about the meaning of organ transplantation, history of organ transplantation, what all organs and tissues that can be transplanted, various types of transplantation, types of organ donors, the ethical aspects of organ transplantation. In further lectures, we will be discussing about the laws related to it, that is the Organ Transplantation Act and all. So, we will start our lecture with the keywords that are important keywords in this lecture are the about the medicine, organ transplantation, donor, consent, ethics and the World Health Organization. So, this is a very famous news, that is a third organ transplant in a third day in Indore with from the Times of India. So, in this is the person being mentioned shown is a Babulal Suryavanshi, a chess player. So, this news is from Indore, Madhya Pradesh. Indore made a record of sorts of facilitating this organ donation with the help of this act. For the third consecutive day on Tuesday, the liver, corneas and the skin of this person, that is a 71-year-old chess champion from Ujjain, were donated to the recipient at hospital and research center, that is a CHRC. So, this person, former national level chess player, declared brain dead by a panel of doctors after he was moved from Ujjain to the CHRC on Monday evening. His family readily agreed to donate his organs after being approached by volunteers of Muskan group. This person, a resident of Park Colony in Ujjain, was admitted to the Sanjeevani nursing home with severe hypertension and cerebral stroke for few days, and he has being declared brain dead and family agreed for a organ donation under this act. So, such a great personality who has donated at this age. So, it is a great thing of our society. Body parts have given a life to the 4 babies. So, that is also a good thing of this act and our society, how this act has helping this whole society and the needy person. So, another news from the NDTV, the doctor couple in Maharashtra donates organs of son killed in road accident. So, the donated organs benefit at least 11 people mentioned by the IMA of Maharashtra, Dr. Santosh Kadam. So, these things are very important. So, all should, even people should register under Noto Soto registry and perform the organ donation whenever being needed, or it helps to the recipients also. So, overall it helps the whole society and to develop whole nation. So, coming to the introduction of our lecture on organ transplantation. Organ transplantation is a medical procedure that involves the removal of an organ or tissue from one person and its transplantation into another person. So, the who is donating, so that is the donor, and who is receiving, that is the recipients. So, why it needed, why it is necessary? Because of their any failure or the damage which has occurred to the recipient particular organ. So, there is no other option or last alternative treatment being the transplantation of that particular damaged organ. So, this innovative method of organ transplantation under this Tohota Act, that is a Transplantation of Human Organs and Tissue Act, has revolutionized the field of medicine, offering a lifeline to individuals suffering from end stage organ failure or severe organ damage. Although the idea of organ transplantation is an old one, successful transplantation did not occur until the 20th century. It started from 1954. The successful kidney transplantation was done first in the USA in year 1954, the long back. Then second being in the year of 1962, the cadaveric kidney was transplanted successfully. Later in 1963, next year, the liver was successfully transplanted. In the year of 1981, the heart was successfully transplanted. So, it was not easy to do the transplantation from the donor to the recipient should work properly function. So, this starting we are doing from 1954, the got success with an organ wise, the kidney, then liver and then the heart. So, what all organs can be transplanted? So, previously it was just the organs, now being the tissue being added, but not the blood. Blood does not come under the Organ Transplantation Act, it come under Drug and Cosmetic Act. So, the liver, kidney, lungs, pancreas, heart, intestine, bone, skin, cornea, islets of Langerhans, that is of the pancreas, bone marrow, these all can be transplanted under this Transplantation Human Organ and Tissue Act. So, what all are the types of organ donors? The living donor or the deceased donor? Living donor means who is alive and donates a renewable tissue, cell or a fluid or donates an organ. The deceased donor, the people who have declared brain dead by a committee who is not a part of transplantation, that is very much mandatory. Who is declaring should not be a part of transplant committee, and whose organs are kept viable by ventilators or other mechanical mechanism until they can be excised for transplantation. So, what all are the different types of transplantations? As the autograft, allograft, isograft and the xenograft, as per the different like from one person to another, from one tissue to other. So, these terminologies are being come up: auto, allo, iso and xeno. So, the autograft means a transplant of tissues from one to oneself, like skin grafts, vein extraction for the CABG, coronary artery bypass graft, storing blood in advance of surgery. So, these all are the autograft. Allograft, transplanted organs or tissue from a genetically non-identical member of the same species. Isograft, a subset of allograft in which organs or the tissues are transplanted from a donor to a genetically identical recipient, that is identical twins. Xenograft, replacement of an individual's defective organ with an organ harvested from another species. So, species has being changed in xeno, while in iso these are related with the identical twins, genetically identical twins. So, what all are the ethical aspects of organ transplantation? Since many people can benefit greatly from organ and tissue transplantations, the demand usually exceeds the supply. Also, the costs related to some organ transplants are very high. From the standpoint of deontological ethics, the debate over the definitions of life, death and the human body is going on. The ethical and the legal issues related to organ and tissue procurement and transplantation are often discussed in light of autonomy, free and informed consent, beneficence, non-malfeasance, fairness and the common good. So, what all are the ethical issues involved in this organ transplantation? So, first and foremost is the organ trafficking and commercialization. Second, the organ donation and the consent issue. Third, equitable access, living donor concern, transparency in organ allocation, legal and regulatory framework, cultural sensitivity, public awareness and education, and the for last very important, post transplant follow up and the care of that particular recipient involved in this organ transplantation. So, the coming to the organ trafficking and commercialization, the ethical issue is being India has faced various challenges related to the organ trafficking and commercialization. Poverty and the lack of education can make individuals vulnerable to exploitation, leading to unethical practices. So, ethical consideration ensuring strict enforcement of laws against organ trafficking, implementing ethical guidelines, and raising awareness about the importance of legal and ethical organ donation. So, next ethical issue is organ donation and the consent. Obtaining the informed consent for organ donation is crucial. In some cases, there may be challenging in obtain valid consent due to cultural beliefs, lack of awareness or family dynamics. It is really difficult for a person to give a consent for organ donation in a living. So, the person thinks that how I can give a like consent or I will do the organ donation, need a various awareness or even death. After death, if person has not signed for himself or herself for organ donation, and if after death we goes to the relatives have some social and cultural issue, how we should donate it. It is really difficult to get a valid consent. So, the awareness or the proper counseling to be needed. So, ethical consideration is the emphasizing the importance of informed consent, addressing cultural sensitivities and implementing educational programs to promote voluntary and ethical organ donation. Equitable access. The ethical issue, there may be a disparities in access to the transplantation services based on socio-economic factors. Affluent individuals may have better access to the organs, creating ethical concerns related to equity. So, that this is also very important ethical issue should not be there. Whatever being the sequence to be followed by the Noto, Soto and Roto, that should be followed, not by the person who has the more money, they will get the first chance. It is a first come first serve basis. Ethical consideration, implementing proper policies to ensure equitable access to transplantation services, considering the need of marginalized population and addressing socio-economic disparities. Living donor concern. Living donors may face coercion or exploitation, especially in cases where financial incentives are involved. Ensuring the well-being and autonomy of living donors is crucial. Ethical consideration is implementing safeguards for living donors such as thorough medical and psychological evaluation and prohibiting financial incentives to prevent exploitation. So, the transparency in organ allocation, there should be proper transparency. So, transparency in organ allocation is essential to ensure fair distribution and prevent the corruption or exploitation. Lack of transparency can erode public trust in this transplantation system of organs. So, ethical consideration is establishing clear and the transparent criteria for organ allocation, ensuring accountability in the allocation process and promoting openness in communication with the public through various awareness programs. So, the transparency should be there, who is very much needy or the first come first serve the organ to be transplanted in that recipient. Legal and regulatory framework. Inadequate legal and regulatory frameworks can lead to ethical challenges in organ transplantation. Strong regulatory measures are necessary to prevent illegal practices. Advocating for and implementing effective legal and regulatory frameworks to govern organ transplantation with a focus on preventing illegal activities and ensuring ethical practices. So, the legal and regulatory framework is very much mandatory. Those who follows, it is good. Those who violates the particular legal guidelines or the act, any violation is being there, they should have a strict penalties and punishments. Cultural sensitivity. India is culturally diverse and cultural beliefs may influence attitudes towards organ donation. Respecting and addressing cultural perspectives is crucial for ethical transplantation. Practices. So, engage with communities to understand and respect cultural perspectives and tailor educational initiatives to address cultural beliefs surrounding organ donation. So, public awareness and education, this is also very much lacking in our society. So, the lack of awareness and education about organ donation, organ transplantation can hinder the ethical practices. An informed public is more likely to make ethical decisions regarding the organ donation and transplantation. So, implementing public awareness campaigns, educational programs to inform the public about the importance of organ donation, organ transplantation, dispel myths and encourage ethical decision making is very important through various programs to be mandatory to be done in the society even at the state and the national levels. Post transplant follow up and care for the particular recipients. The ensuring long term care for the transplant recipient is crucial for the success of transplantation, as even they lack knowledge, even the people are not aware after transplant how much follow up to be needed, even that can also be the failure of that particular organ transplantation. So, access to the post transplant care including the medication and monitoring may be challenging for some socioeconomic related or backward related patients. Ethical consideration, the developing systems to provide ongoing care for the transplant recipients, addressing barrier, what all the barriers are there, whether the education or the financial or any societal to post transplant follow up, and considering the long term well being of transplant recipients. It is very much mandatory to understand the barriers about the post transplant follow up. It is necessary to take care of post transplant care to that recipient to maintain the dignity for that particular donor who has donated very important organ to the recipient. So, what all are the World Health Organization guidelines on this organ transplantation? In May 2010, the 63rd World Health Assembly resolution endorsed the WHO guideline guiding principles in the light of changes in practices and attitudes regarding organ and tissue transplantation. The guiding principles are intended to provide an orderly, ethical and acceptable framework for the procurement and transplantation of human cells, tissues and organs for therapeutic purposes. The guiding principles stress the necessity of documentation and transparency both for quality management purposes and to justify the confidence of patients, clinicians and the community at large in donation and transplantation services. So, what all are the principles of WHO? Principle 1, cells, tissues and organs may be removed from the bodies of the deceased person for the purpose of transplantation if any consent required by law is obtained and there is no reason to believe that the deceased person objected to such removal. Second principle, physicians determining that a potential donor has died should not be directly involved in cell, tissue or organ removal from the donor or subsequent transplantation procedure, nor should they be responsible for the care of any intended recipient of such cells, tissues and organs. So, these are the main principle 1 and principle 2, and the principle 3rd is that donations from deceased person should be developed to their maximum therapeutic potential, but adult living person may donate organs as permitted by domestic regulations. In general, living donors should be genetically, legally or emotionally related to their recipients. Live donations are acceptable when the donors informed and voluntary consent is obtained. Coming to the 4th principle, no cells, tissues or organs should be removed from the body of a living minor for the purpose of transplantation other than the narrow exceptions allowed under national law. Specific measures should be in place to protect the minor, and wherever possible the minor's consent should be obtained before donation, and as well as the consent should be obtained from the legal guardian parents. What is applicable to minor also applies to any legally incompetent person. So, in these cases the minors or the legally incompetent or even retarded person, mentally incapable person to have a sound of mind can give a consent by the legally guardian or the parent on his or her behalf and follow or do the organ transplantation or the donation by these minor or a incapable person. Principle 5 says the cells, tissues and organs should only be donated freely without any monetary payment or other reward of monetary value. Purchasing or offering to purchase cells, tissues or organs for transplantation, or their sale by living person or by the next of kin for deceased person should be banned. Coming to the sixth principle, the promotion of altruistic donation of human cells, tissues or organs by means of advertisement or public appeal may be undertaken in accordance with domestic regulations. Principle 7 says the physicians and other health professionals should not engage in transplantation procedures, and health insurers and other payers should not cover such procedures if the cells, tissues or organs concerned have been obtained through exploitation or coercion of or payment to the donor or the next of kin of a deceased donor. Eighth principle says all healthcare facilities and professionals involved in cell, tissue or organ procurement and transplantation procedure should be prohibited from receiving any payment that exceeds the justifiable fee for the services rendered. Principle 9 says the allocation of organs, cells and tissues should be guided by clinical criteria and ethical norms, not financial or other considerations. Allocation rules defined by the appropriately constituted committees should be equitable, externally justified and transparent. Principle 10 says the level of safety, efficacy and quality of human cells, tissues and organs for transplantation as health products of an exceptional nature must be maintained and optimized on an ongoing basis. This requires implementation of quality systems including traceability and vigilance with adverse events and reactions reported both nationally and for exported human products. Principle 11 says the organization and execution of donation and transplantation activities as well as their clinical results must be transparent and open to scrutiny while ensuring that the personal anonymity and privacy of donors and recipients are always protected. So, these all were the principles under WHO guidelines. So, the law relating to the organ transplantation in India, the shortage of organ donors for patients with end stage organ disease requiring transplants is a global problem. So, it is really difficult becoming the donors are very less in number and recipients are more. So, it has become a issue or a problem society wise globally. So, it has leading to the various ethical and legal issues like organ trafficking, commercialization with the exploitation of poor people who were made to sell their organs. So, this should be prohibited. So, to address these issues, here comes the laws or an act. The Transplantation of Human Organs Act 1994 was enacted to regulate the removal, storage and transplantation of human organs and tissues for therapeutic purposes. Further, the Government of India has enacted the amendment in this and comes the Transplantation of Human Organs Act 2011 and notified the Transplantation of Human Organs and Tissue rules in 2014. The foresaid acts and rules provide for a uniform policies for organ donation in the country. Later it has been tissues being also added and comes as Transplantation of Human Organs and the Tissue Act. So, it all includes all organs and tissues except blood. So, coming to the one of the famous judgment in a Vijay Kumar Hariram Sahu versus State of Maharashtra of year 2012, Bombay High Court held that there is a need to allow transplantation as an instrument of saving lives. transplantation is an important element in the protection of public health. There is a need to ensure that trafficking in human organs does not take place by exploiting poverty, illiteracy and ignorance of a large section of Indian society. So, here comes the conclusion of our lecture. The ethical landscape surrounding organ transplantation is multifaceted and demands careful consideration of various principles to ensure a fair, transparent and compassionate approach. Addressing challenges such as organ trafficking, equitable access, living donor concern and cultural sensitivities requires collaborative efforts from healthcare professionals, policymakers and the public. Striking a balance between respecting the autonomy of donors and the recipients, ensuring healthcare equity and managing economic implications contributes to the overall ethical success. In navigating the ethical complexities, India has the opportunity to serve as a model for compassionate and ethical organ transplantation practices, contributing to the well-being of both donors and the recipients alike. So, due to these various ethical issues in organ transplantation, whatever being discussed, WHO has given a various guidelines in the form of 11 principles and the laws has given a particular act. So, we have to follow the laws and the act to curb these all ethical issues related to organ transplantation, and we have to make this organ transplantation and donation as a boon to the society, to an improvement of whole society, community and a whole nation. And the further lectures will be on the what all are the mentioned in the particular act and the various laws in organ transplantation, and specifically if in any medico legal case happens, in that case what all the procedure of doing the organ transplantation and organ donation we will be discussing in further lectures. So, this was all for this lectures. So, these are my references of this lecture, you all can go through. So, first and foremost from the Journal of Medical Ethics of year 2005, that is ethical consideration in the application of preconditioning to solid organ transplantation. Another, the article from the Indian Journal of Urology in a year of 2009, and the last one of the PDF, very important, of the World Health Organization. So, these all are the references for further readings. You all volunteers and students can go through these references for further readings. Thank you very much.